Hey everyone, so we planted these crepe myrtle trees several years ago. They were about knee high from the ground. All of them were supposed to be lavender, but it turns out, so that second one from the right turned out to be a white crepe myrtle. So what I did is I attempted to start grafting lavender crepe myrtle branches onto that second one from the right, and everything I did failed, but I finally figured it out with an approach graft. So an approach graft is where you have plants that have root stalks. You just tie them together and then you start cutting one away from the other. So you can see where this is from the original plant. I put it in a pot. I put the pot in a stand, and then I just tied, you can see the approach grafts here. And then once the graft took, because this plant was alive, you don't have to worry about your scion dying because it's still tied to an alive plant. So as this graft took, I just slowly cut it away. You know, you do maybe like a quarter each time or a third of the way, and then you finally cut it fully away from its donor plant. But that's what it looks like now. There's the original branch here. So same thing over here. See where I cut it off, and you can see where the graft took and produced nice big branches. So I got a lavender plant to graft on, but what I found out is, so when these nurseries, you know, they're planting the crepe myrtle, sometimes maybe a seed from like a white will fall into the pot. And you know how crepe myrtles look, they're kind of a bunch of little stalks sticking out. And so out of this lavender crepe myrtle that I used as the donor plant, it also had a white branch that poked out of that same pot. And that one got grafted onto here. And so it was a big letdown because this was the first one that bloomed. So I was like, what happened? Well, it turned out just one of the branches, or one of the plants within that donor plant, happened to be white. It just a fluke incident where the seed dropped in to the pot. And so what I'm going to show you is how I did all this by grafting onto this one. So here's the donor plant right here that I originally used. And so because it has white in there and I don't know which one are the white branches, I figured the best bet would be to take this donor plant and come over here to this crepe myrtle and get a known good lavender branch grafted onto the donor plant. So I'm going to actually use this. So here's from the donor plant, and actually it's a donor plant getting a donor, so that I have a known good lavender branch on this pot. So this one's actually taken, so I'm going to go ahead and start cutting this away, just a gradual cut away, so that I have this donor plant ready to go for next spring. So it's fall now, so I'm going to wait till next spring and I will begin to graft this on. Now, as you can see, here's the stand that I was talking about earlier. So this allowed me to take that donor plant and put it up to the height I needed to get it to where I can get a branch grafted on. Hey everyone, it's springtime, the end of February here in Central Florida. This is our last white flowering branch of this crepe myrtle, and we're going to go ahead and take our known good lavender grafts from this, potted plant, and go ahead and get those grafted on using an approach graft. Okay, so I got the pot in place. The materials though that I'm going to be using: utility knife, grafting tape, and then I usually just take some regular tape and just tape the grafting tape in place because it didn't seem to want to stay for me. So I'm going to start with the utility knife and get some cuts in place on both the scion and then the host plant. And again, I'll show you as I work through that. Okay, so what I'm doing is I did a notch on this side and I'll crisscross it onto a notch right there. So it's going to fit like that. I need both hands to make it fit, but the cambium, which is the green stuff, they got to be touching, and it looks like they will be touching. So I'm going to go ahead and just slip those 2 notches, kind of set them against each other, and then secure this with the grafting tape. So this is how I ended up doing this one. I've done straight up and down notches before, and they seem to work really well. So I just kind of went overboard and we made this all the way through the top. That way the scion just sat in there real nicely. But that's how that side looks. And this is how this side looks. So I'm just going to sit them together like this. And just wrap them nice and tightly. And that one should work. Okay, so I have those grafts in place. And so we'll give it about 6 weeks to see if those take. And once they take, I'll begin to make gradual cuts to go ahead and separate the scion from the donor plant. And then once that happens, then you have your completed graft. But for now, what I'm going to do is just keep watering it. It's obviously sitting in a black pot up on this platform, so it's going to be exposed to the sun. So I'm going to be babying this, throwing water in here, throw some milorganite in here, and I'll go ahead and put milorganite on this host tree as well. That way everything is getting, you know, what it needs. All right, the grafting tape is off, and as you can see, we got some cambium right there starting to form and heal over this, so it's locked in there. So it probably was good timing that I went ahead and took this off, because there was some new growth underneath here that was starting to rot. So you can see that I kind of cleaned it up. But so yeah, almost 2 months is how long I kept this on here. And again, we'll just keep this one on here longer, because it's not really like a real good graft. It's just where the cambium is kind of pulled together. Okay, it's been 2 weeks, so I just wanted to show you how that graft healed. As you can see, it's looking pretty good. So I'm pretty happy with this, and I'm gonna go ahead and start making a cut. So I'll put about a cut a third of the way right here. And the other thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna remove the grafting tape here and see how this graft took. Okay, that healed up real nicely. It's on there, so both grafts took. Okay, bad news. I was making the cut on this one and broke the graft. But that's okay, because I have this one up here. So I'll go ahead and make my cut into this one. Now this one is nicely fused on there. I'm not concerned about messing up the graft. But okay, so I made my first cut right there, and I'm just going to keep cutting that over the next couple of weeks. Okay, so time to make that cut to go 2/3 into the way of this scion. Okay, it's a little bit more than 2/3. But I think it's good to go, because that graft took really well. So, okay, so it's 8 days later, and I'm gonna go ahead and make the final cut on this donor plant here. So there's that cut right there. Okay, there you go. Okay, so go ahead and take the donor plant. So there's the donor plant, and here is the host plant, and here is that scion right here. So you can see it's grown pretty good. The leaves look healthy on it. So what we're going to do now is just kind of stand back and watch it flower. And so we'll make sure that this is a lavender here. And if it's lavender, that means then all of my main branches on this crepe myrtle are now lavender. So as you can see here, here's a new shoot from below the graft. And I'm gonna let this grow to flower so I can show you that this was a white crepe myrtle. Okay, so this project's been 3 summers in the making, but I finally got it. I have turned this white crepe myrtle into a lavender flowering crepe myrtle. So this is that last scion right here. As you can see, it's fused really well, and it's real nice and healthy. Just trying to bend it down here so I can show you, but out there. See, there it is. So this one did flower correctly. Now, if you notice, right there is white flowering. I left that on there because I wanted to prove that this, in fact, was originally a white flowering crepe myrtle. So if we follow that down, see that right there? Okay, see it goes below the graft. Okay, so I got the pruner, so this is that white. And so it's now officially a lavender flowering crepe myrtle. One other thing I want to point out, I probably will have offshoots from the original growth. I'll just clean those off. Also, when I prune this in the winter, I'm going to make sure I cut above the graft. I don't want to cut below the graft or it'll be a white flowering again. All right, there you have it. So 3 summers in the making, was able to successfully turn this white flowering crepe myrtle into a lavender flowering crepe myrtle. Now, technically, this crepe myrtle below the graft is a white flowering crepe myrtle, so you can't change that. But through grafting, we can get it to do different things. So one other thing to know is that this crepe myrtle that I grafted onto is smaller than the other ones, and that's because I'm grafting, cutting off limbs, all that stuff to try to successfully get a graft in place. Well, that stunted the growth a little bit over these last 3 summers. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to baby it. It's going to get fertilizer amendments or what have you. I won't baby the others, and I'll try to get this one caught up. So a really fun project for any of those of you who like to experiment in your garden. And I guess I can move on to the fence now. As you can see, it's looking pretty bad. Thanks for watching. God bless.